This is bad. This is bad propaganda. They're desperate. And weirdly enough, I think they did not expect there to be this much pushback. No one believes this. Even Republicans are not going to be like, oh, we can't get this guy back. Get out of here. Now, Trump administration asked Supreme Court to roll back order halting deportations. We're going to be talking about that. My mother-in-law brought up Coachella and asked us to explain Palestine and change their views of Radlib. Let's go.
Now to Washington and the Trump administration's crackdown on immigration and the new challenge to the Supreme Court following a temporary pause on some deportations. ABC senior White House correspondent Selena Wang joins us with the latest. Selena, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Whit. This is a showdown between the White House and the Supreme Court, with the justices making their decision at rapid speed after the ACLU argued that the administration was trying to rush migrants onto plane and send them to a notorious prison in El Salvador without sufficient due process. This morning, the Trump administration now asking the Supreme Court to roll back its decision to block the deportation of a group of Venezuelan migrants being held at a detention center in Texas under the Alien Enemies Act, a centuries-old wartime law that provides little or no due process. That extraordinary order coming from the highest court shortly after midnight Saturday, just hours after the ACLU raced to file an emergency appeal. The ACLU's lead attorney telling me that migrants received this notice and were told they'd be removed in 12 to 24 hours. The notice says, under the Alien Enemies Act, you have been determined to be an alien enemy subject to apprehension, restraint, and removal from the United States.
We're talking about the administration hurrying people to the plane to send them to this Salvadoran prison without any due process whatsoever.
Among the migrants at that Texas detention center, Jose Gregorio Caldera Perez, seen in this video shared with ABC News, speaking to his girlfriend from the facility on Thursday before the court's ruling. He says there are a lot of us, and every minute more and more Venezuelans keep coming. The majority are Venezuelans. Another man in a jumpsuit seen holding up a piece of paper he says they allegedly have to sign and that they do not know where they might be going. ABC News has reached out to DHS for comment. The paper says Venezuela, but others say it's to El Salvador, so please help us. Caldera Perez's girlfriend telling us he said the paper is only in English and hard to understand, adding that he claims he and a group of detainees were taken to an airport near the facility on Friday and told they were about to be deported. Then he told her once they arrived, an officer informed the group they were being sent back to the center and would not board the plane. Overnight, Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas releasing their dissent, calling the midnight order unprecedented and legally questionable relief. The Trump administration also arguing that the Supreme Court's block was premature and asking the justices to clarify that its order only stops them from deporting migrants under the Alien Enemies Act and not under other authorities. That's the same act invoked back in March to deport hundreds of Venezuelan migrants to the prison in El Salvador. Among them, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a father living in Maryland who was mistakenly sent back to his home country despite a court order barring the move.
He was traumatized by being at CCOT and fearful of many of the prisoners in other cell blocks.
The White House says they're confident they'll ultimately prevail against what they're calling meritless litigation. And it's also another busy week ahead for the Trump administration in the courts, with multiple hearings scheduled focused on the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act. So in all of these legal cases, Janae, this legal battle is only beginning.
It certainly is. Selena Wang, thank you so much.
President Trump, who met with El Salvador's president this week, made it clear he does not intend to seek the return of Abrego Garcia to the United States. Deportation without due process is at the center of the Abrego Garcia case. The administration claims he is an MS-13 gang member, something his family and his attorneys deny. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen flew to El Salvador himself to try to get a meeting with the man whose family, including his wife, an American citizen, is still in Maryland, pushing for his return. First, authorities refused, but late Thursday, Senator Van Hollen was able to sit down with Abrego Garcia, who was not in his jail garb, and not in the hellish Sikot prison, but instead in plain clothes at a nearby hotel. While President Trump accused Van Hollen of defending a violent gang member, the senator says the issue goes far beyond the case of Abrego Garcia.
If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights and due process for everyone else in America.
Yes. And Senator Van Hollen joins me now. So you had this extraordinary trip to El Salvador. When you got there, you demanded or you asked to see Abrego Garcia. You were flatly denied, and then suddenly they brought him to see you. Explain what happened.
Well, you're right. I was denied by the vice president. I then, the next day, tried to drive to Sikot prison, which is this notorious prison.
Yeah.
Soldiers waved me to the side of the road about 3 kilometers out. I said, "What are you doing?" They said they were gotten orders not to allow me to proceed.
Not even to get within miles of the...
Yeah, 3 kilometers. I asked them if they knew anything about the health of Abrego Garcia. They said they knew nothing about it. We had a number of press conferences in El Salvador pointing out that they were complicit in this illegal scheme with the Trump administration and pointing out that it's illegal under international law to prevent any communication with a prisoner.
Because his family hadn't heard from him, nobody had any contact for weeks.
That's right. This is a guy who was just abducted off the streets of Maryland, put in a couple airplanes, didn't know he was going to El Salvador, and ends up in the most notorious prison.
So how'd you end up meeting with him then? What happened?
I think at some point the president of El Salvador realized it was looking really bad to have this person who'd been...
I'm telling you, dude, this only happened because Van Hollen pressed hard and because you guys protested against this. Now, imagine if more Congress members would also demonstrate the same moral courage against the false deportation proceedings for people who have done nothing wrong, but simply said mean things about Israel, like simply wrote an article in the student newspaper about how Israel's doing a genocide, something that we all know is true, by the way. Like conservatives that kept crying about conservatives that kept crying over and over and over again about free speech in 1984 and how libtards want to ban the truth or whatever are straight up watching this unfold.
Just a few days ago on...
What is this? The Palestinian Buddhist arrested by ICE? Oh, about Mosin? Someone said he talked to his Israeli student or something as well. Is this the video? I think that I truly think that the next stage in this is for bold leadership from Bernie Sanders. His own constituent was kidnapped in a similar scheme, the one that Hank Green is talking about here. Like, this has to happen. Similar things to what Van Hollen is doing has to take place with Rumeysa Öztürk, with Mosin, with Mahmoud, with all of the people that are being detained right now, because they participated in student protests against Israel's genocide. It's completely unacceptable. And seeing that this kind of action actually has, this kind of action still at this stage has a reaction from other parties involved where people do actually back down a little bit and concede a little bit. All it takes is for some politicians to demonstrate bravery. It's right there for the taking.
Absconded from America, from the streets of Maryland, in one of their prisons and not able to communicate. So I ended up getting a call saying, "We will bring him to your hotel." And that's how we met.
So did you walk into a trap, though? I mean, they bring him to your hotel. He's in the civilian clothes, and you met with him. We saw the images. You put out the picture of meeting with him. The beginning of the meeting. You're sitting there. You're drinking water and talking to the guy in the hotel lobby, I assume. And then at some point they bring in these glasses that look like margarita glasses.
No, it wasn't a trap. My goal was to meet with him, and make sure I could tell his wife and family he was okay. That was my goal, and I achieved that goal. You're absolutely right that the Salvadorian authorities tried to deceive people. They tried to make it look like he was in paradise. They actually wanted to have the meeting by the hotel pool originally.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had to negotiate that. They wanted to put me right overlooking the pool. In fact, if you had a different angle on the camera shot, you would see the pool.
Because they did write, Bukele put out a statement saying, miraculously risen from the death camps and torture and sipping margaritas with you. Yeah. I mean, they were really trying to make you look like you were hanging out with somebody that they say is a gang member.
Look, this is a person who the United States courts have determined was illegally taken from the United States. And my whole purpose here is to make sure that we observe the rule of law, the Constitution, and due process rights. Bukele, yes, he tried to make it look like somehow this was, Abrego Garcia was enjoying himself. All of that was a setup, right? He had the waiters there. People ordered the waiters to bring these things that look like margaritas. Yeah. It just goes to show the lengths that Bukele and Trump will go to try to deceive people about what this case is all about. What this case is all about is simply complying with the Supreme Court order to facilitate his return and make sure he gets due process.
So what did Abrego Garcia tell you?
He told me about the trauma he had been experiencing, both in terms of the abduction and the fact that he was originally sent to CCOT, which is this notorious prison.
Yeah, we've seen the
He told me
images.
how much he missed his wife and his kids. He specifically mentioned his 5-year-old boy who has autism because that boy had been in the car with him when U.S. agents had stopped them and handcuffed him and then taken him away. So he described all that, and he told me that he had moved recently to a new prison facility. So those are some of the highlights.
I want you to listen to something that Gavin Newsom had to say about all the attention this case has gotten.
This is the distraction of the day, the art of distraction. This is the debate they want. This is their 80-20 issue as they've described it.
Is he right about the politics of this? I mean, the Republicans have taken great joy in portraying you as somebody who is defending somebody who's in this country illegally, they say is a gang member, and, you know, and they're saying that they're trying to just enforce the laws.
John, I don't think it's ever wrong to protect the Constitution and protect due process rights. I think conservative and libertarians, when they think about this case, the idea of somebody being deprived of their liberty and actually in a foreign prison without due process of law, that's something we should all fight for. I think what Americans are tired of is people who want to put their finger to the wind to see what's going on. And I would say that anyone that's not prepared to defend the constitutional rights of one man when they threaten the constitutional rights of all doesn't deserve to lead.
As you know, the president himself has been attacking you by pointing out some of the aspects of Abrego Garcia's record, including the fact that his wife had an order of protection against him in 2021 and alleged some pretty serious allegations of abuse, and even that they—
Oh my God. This, by the way, this is straight up. This is just like lending credence to the lines of attack created by the administration.
That he had detained her. Are you concerned about your defense of somebody? Obviously.
Sorry, what's the deal with them bringing Garcia and the senator wine glasses? Is that what you talked about regarding Republicans' messaging, grasping at straws right now? Or am I dumb because I really don't understand the supposed problem they're trying to manufacture? Yeah, it is. That they put like fake margarita glasses in front of them, which I don't even think had margarita in them, to make it seem like they were having a fun little outing, basically. It's something so simple and so stupid. It doesn't even change the dynamic at all, but it's because Republicans are so goddamn desperate that they're basically holding on to anything and everything they can. You only do this You only do this when you are when you've lost the argument, when you've lost control over the message, and you're worried, and you're doing anything and everything you can to basically say, no, 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 please don't look in this direction. They're bad. They're bad. I promise you, they're bad.
Everybody in this country, even those undocumented immigrants, have rights. But are you concerned about standing so forcefully with somebody that has, you know, at least a questionable record?
I am not defending the man. I'm defending the rights of this man.
Wait, oh God, come on, Van Hollen. You should know by now that this is bullshit, okay? It's bullshit. Just ask the easiest response to this is his wife called my office. His wife is my constituent. She's the one who wants his return. That's it. It's that simple. This is nothing but a distraction to try to post hoc rationalize this false deportation that should not have happened to begin with by this administration, led by wife abusers and drunk rapists. What are we talking about? It's so crazy.
To due process. And the Trump administration has admitted in court that he was wrongfully detained and wrongfully deported.
It's such a, this answer right here is kind of lame, I'll be honest. And I really like what Van Hollen has done so far, but there's still obviously like a limit to how hard he can go. But I think there's no reason to entertain it. There's not even any reason to entertain this whatsoever. You know what I mean? I think that his staffers should arm him better with better talking points on this issue. So now Hasanabi are completely ignoring the fact that his own wife got a protective order on him. Oh my God, this Native American lady is back. If this was a good man, I would get it. But why is there such a defense of non-Americans? I do not get it. Because the idea, first of all, you're in the community of a person who came here when they were 18 years old, okay? You tune in live to a person who luckily has birthright citizenship as a consequence of being an anchor baby. But having said that, don't you think that I would have a different perspective, a different framework that I'm operating off of, and the notion that like anyone that comes here is automatically a bad person or automatically should not be on U.S. soil is a ridiculous statement to present to a person who very clearly wants and has no issue with migrants coming into this country? That's number one. Number two, I ask you this question, and I hope you can understand it. Okay, he came here legally. I'm from legal migration. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. First of all, he was legally present in the United States of America. He was literally a union member as well. He had gainful employment. So you're wrong. He has a wife that is an American citizen. He has children that are American citizens. He was de facto legally on U.S. soil, especially after he got a court, an immigration court, to stop him from being deported to El Salvador, his nation of origin. Okay? That's number one. Number two, if you think, aside from the fact that he came here illegally, which is what you keep repeating. By the way, chatters, this is the lady from yesterday that we thought was a Fed, who's like, I'm a Native American who wants land back, but also will entertain the stupidest white nativist anti-immigration arguments that the racist Republicans present. Okay? Very cool. Anyway, actually, it said that he crossed the border at 16. Wait, what? This person, first of all, let me just explain something to you, okay? You know how natives will say no one is illegal on stolen land? I don't know if you've heard this statement before. I don't know if you've ever internalized it or if you ever thought about it, but I think it's a pretty valid assessment to make. Not only that, but also, this is only an issue if people that are coming in to the United States of America are actually causing issues, okay? Like real issues. If I'll hand it to you, okay? I'll help you understand this. If what Donald Trump said about undocumented migrants was true, the fact that undocumented migrants seemingly from all around the world are coming into the United States of America with one goal in mind, which is to undermine America and do rapes and mass murders, and they're killing 100,000 Americans every year, then yes, mass deportation would be valid. Okay? That would be an invasion. Except that's not what's going on. That is completely made up. Okay? That's it. This is the problem. At the heart of the problem lies a severe sequence of lies that dumb like you believe in. It has nothing to do with things the right way. Come on now. You are too stupid to understand that asylum applications are a legal and valid form. And in order to process an asylum application, you need to be inside of U.S. borders to begin with. Many of the people that you think are undocumented migrants or illegal aliens are simply applying for asylum. That's number one. Number two, this person already had a withholding of removal, which means that he was legally in on U.S. soil at that point, okay? I am for legal migration. No, you're not. You're an idiot because you're literally talking about someone who had a right to be here at this point. He had a right to be here. It's dangerous to cross illegally. That's my stance. Why has he not gotten legal citizenship? Stop calling me stupid. What the whatever. Because you are stupid and you need to hear it over and over again. Do not call me names, dude. You are tripping. The very fact that I didn't ban you yesterday after you ate up an hour and a half of my time and everyone else's time in here because I tried to walk you personally through the steps piece by piece by also bringing it back to your own personal association with your own identity, with your own culture as well, hoping that that would trigger something in you to recognize how silly you're being about this issue. And it seemingly didn't work, means that I should be doing way more than just calling your names. I should be banning you and moving on because I do not want to break the law, okay? I'm going to take two different steps here to explain something to you. One, there are a sequence of unjustifiable laws, okay? Completely ridiculous laws. For example, being Jewish was illegal in Nazi Germany. Would you say, don't break the law, don't be Jewish? No, you wouldn't. For example, freeing slaves was illegal at a certain point in this country. Would you say, don't free slaves? What do you mean? The law's the law. That is an idiotic argument. Legality and morality are two separate concepts. You should be an adult and be able to figure out that there is a difference between the two, okay? And that one trumps over the other. That's number one. Number two, in this circumstance, and in many cases when people are talking about someone being an illegal alien, those people already have the proper documentation and the proper clearance from the government to be here, to work here. They're just simply saying that they're illegal aliens, okay? A withholding of removal to where your nation of origin is a higher standard of clear than even an asylum application. It is a de facto legal allowance to be on U.S. soil unless you do something that is completely heinous. Okay? That's it.
My mission and my purpose is to make sure that we uphold the rule of law, because if we take it away from him, we do jeopardize it for everybody else. And I do want to point out, Carl, yes, the Trump administration is trying to change the story. They're trying to detract attention. Here's where they should put their facts. They should put it before the court. They should put up or shut up in court. Because Judge Zinnes, who's the district court judge in this case, said, and I quote, they put no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or to any other terrorist activity, unquote. She says that a couple times in her decision. So, Mr. President,
you're being wildly disrespectful of Chowder's opinion that people should be thrown into foreign concentration camps. I know.
And Republicans and anybody involved with this, take your facts to court. Don't put everything out on social media. As to his wife is the one who is asking us all to bring him home so his rights can be respected.
Okay, he came back around to that point, so I'm happy that he did.
And in fact, even if he is a gang member, that doesn't mean you don't have rights, due process rights.
Well, exactly. But again, the place to litigate that.
This is also good as well. This statement in and of itself is also one that should be repeated too. Like, even having gang associations is not automatically illegal. We're so far removed from that part of the conversation because the needle has so firmly planted in the most reactionary position at this point where everyone is trying to fight any battle they can at the edge, at the tip of the spear at this point. Like, people are like, hey, can we get due process again, please? Meanwhile, we've forgotten like that there are 11 other steps even before this point that are also completely unconscionable and completely ridiculous.
Is in the courts, and they've not put the evidence before the judge in the case. So again, put up or shut up in court.
Let me ask you also, we heard from Tom Homan, which we'll be playing shortly. He was very critical of you, not surprisingly, and said, that he was alarmed that you would go to El Salvador to meet with an alleged gang member. He didn't say alleged, but a gang member. And when you have not taken a single visit to the border over the past 4 years or shown concerns about what was happening at the border.
What is this? Dude, what the is going on? Is this on Fox News or ABC, man? This is like... Yeah, he's been living in Maryland with his U.S.-born wife and son after being provided protected legal status and legal work authorization in 2019. The protected status was granted after an immigration judge agreed with Abrego Garcia that his life was in danger if he was sent back to El Salvador. But this person still does not get it. Whatever, have a nice day. I still think you're cute, but wow. Whenever people say there's a legal way to come into the country, they, one, completely refuse to recognize that his status in this country was legal de facto. Okay, he was de facto legally in the country. He had a work authorization. And number two, the legal pathways of entry into the country in terms of getting immigration status are shut off to people like this. Okay, nobody is trekking 2,000 miles across treacherous terrain, braving the elements, and coming in here for fun, okay? They're not taking the hard route because they're all a bunch of YouTubers and TikTokers who wanted to do the crossing the border challenge, okay? They're doing this because the legal pathways are deliberately shut off to them. These are incredibly desperate people who don't want to do crimes, and that also is demonstrated by the criminality and the crime statistics of undocumented migrants in comparison to natural-born U.S. citizens. Undocumented migrants are responsible for lower crime per capita than U.S.-born citizens are by a wide margin. If legal pathways of citizenship or legal pathways of entry was allowed, was easily accessible, they would do it. Many of you have no idea how long it takes. Many of you have no idea how expensive it is. That is by design. That is specifically designed that way so that this country's capital owners can have a steady crop of expendable, disposable, permanent underclass, non-legally protected migrant workers. That's it. That is the only reason. The currency exchange alone would already create an unfair dynamic without any sort of wage parity legislation for migrant workers as opposed to domestic U.S. workers. So even without that, there would already be a depressive factor in play here for people if they came in legally because of the fact that their material conditions are very different in their home countries. And they would come here and work for much lower prices than the U.S.-born domestic laborer would work for. But we don't even want to do that. We want slavery with extra steps, pennies on the dollar, disposable people that we can work in our agriculture, the disposable people that we can work in our construction. It's completely ridiculous. It is one of the most inhumane things that we do on a regular basis. It is by design. The cruelty is baked into the system. It's that simple. But perhaps it's not that simple for some of you to comprehend. Yeah. Also, I saw this on my timeline. I'm going to show you a sequence of steps. Mike from PA apparently reposted this and said, Ethan Klein is afraid to leave his house for a haircut. And then this person reposted Mike from PA and said, Palestine still isn't free and in fact are in a worse position since Hassan put the spotlight on them. This person literally thinks that I am responsible for Israel's genocide of Palestinians because of my advocacy. What an insane way to live your life, okay? Please, you have horse blinders on and you have no way of analyzing world events outside of this narrow scope of influencer drama to which One of you guys reposted and said, it's embarrassing when people admit to having a childlike understanding about the Palestinian plight that you insinuate that you, one, know more about who should be in the movement than actual Palestinians and people that have welcomed him. Two, think he can free Palestine already. Very funny. Pathetic. Anyway, how do you keep getting away with it? What do you mean? Getting away with what? Yeah, I saw the second signal chat thing. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to get to it. Don't worry. Let's get back to the El Salvador trip that Chris Van Hollen engaged in, and also this completely ridiculous line of questioning coming from ABC.
So I read
Your
that
response.
I read that transcript.
Yep.
I don't have time to go through it all. He is lying through his teeth on many places in that record. And I have been actually fighting MS-13 probably longer than Donald Trump ever uttered the name MS-13 for 20 years in this region. I helped stand up the anti-gang task force. But the idea that you can't defend people's rights under the Constitution and fight MS-13 and gang violence is a very dangerous idea. That's the idea the president wants to put out. That's why they're spreading all these lies. Take your information to the court, because you clearly have not done that, and respect this person's constitutional rights and follow the order of the Supreme Court, which they're defying as we speak.
All right, Senator Van Hollen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John.
And joining me now is Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. Senator Kennedy, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's start off with this case of Mr. Abrego Garcia. You heard my conversation with Senator Van Hollen. The Justice Department called the deportation of Mr. Abrego Garcia a, quote, administrative error. The Supreme Court has ordered the government to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's return. Should Mr. Abrego Garcia be returned to the United States, Senator?
Well, Chris is my friend, and I respect him, and he's certainly entitled to his opinion, but in my judgment, he is utterly and gloriously wrong. I mean, most of this gauzy rhetoric is just rage bait. Unless you're next level obtuse, you know that Mr. Garcia is never coming back to the United States, ever. And that's not because of President Trump. That's because of Mr. President Bukele. He said up front in the Oval Office that he was not going to return Mr. Garcia. No federal judge, even Jay Wilkinson, has authority over a sovereign country. Besides that, it should not go unnoticed that...
Oh, yeah? The American government has no power to tell the country that we are using as a slave labor colony to return people that have been deported there falsely. That's an interesting statement from a Rhodes Scholar, by the way. All this foghorn, leghorn bullshit is simply an act, for those of you who don't know, okay? President Bukele, Rhodes Scholar, chat. These senators think Americans are dumb idiots. I mean, a lot of Americans are dumb idiots, let's be real. But yeah, the notion that we cannot demand the return of people that we have falsely deported to a country is ridiculous. We have done so. We've done it successfully in the past, as a matter of fact. So when he says this, he's just hoping that you don't know that that is the case. I wonder if the journalist in question here will actually... will turn around and repeat. I mean, will turn around and say that's not true.
Mr. Bukele is much closer to President Xi in China than he is to President Trump. Xi is spending billions of dollars to build infrastructure in El Salvador, and I wouldn't be surprised if they've discussed this case. The final point I would make, whether you agree with it or not, is Bukele hates MS-13, and Mr. Garcia allegedly is a member of MS-13. The other point I would make is that Chris says Mr. Garcia's had no due process. He's been in front of 17 judges some of them twice, probably $5 million worth of legal fees, and he hadn't had to pay a dime. Final point I'd make, look, this was a screw-up, in my opinion. The administration won't admit it, but this was a screw-up. Mr. Garcia was not supposed to be sent to El Salvador. He was sent to El Salvador. The Democrats saying, look, you know, we told you Trump is a threat to democracy. This is going to happen every other Thursday afternoon. I don't see any pattern here. I mean, you know, someday.
90% of people that were sent to the Seekoff facility thus far have no criminal background. None whatsoever. And have been shipped there to the slave labor colony exclusively because some dipshit ICE agent knew that they were easy pickings. In order to make it seem like there is a mass mobilization happening against all migrants, they're going after the ones that have basically told the government exactly where they're at. That's why they're going after student visa recipients and demanding that college campuses reveal any kind of misconduct that their foreign students have engaged in, because they want to pad the stats. Because lo and behold, and this might come as a surprise, the previous administration, regardless of what Trump said, and every administration, as a matter of fact, has, of course, criminally prosecuted migrants when they do crimes. Contrary to what the Trump administration was claiming before the election, that's the reason why they can't find these rugged, crazy criminals and are simply trying to deport whoever the they can. Make no mistake, they're deporting for jaywalking and shit, and there's a reason for that.
Pigs may fly, but I doubt it.
Senator, this is notable because you are saying.
Yeah, in Trump's first term, ICE returned a man to the U.S. after deporting him to Iraq in a contravention of U.S. federal court order. They did it before, they can do it again. But this is just one instance. Trump is also, or previous administrations have also demanded the return from El Salvador too. The idea that this is impossible is ridiculous.
In your words, this is a screw up. I mean, are you concerned that more mistakes could happen?
Well, sure. None of us want mistakes. Mistakes bad. Doing it right, good.
Yeah.
But it was a screw up, and I understand why the administration is bowed up and said we won't admit it's a mistake, because if they do, they'll have their throats torn out. But it was a screw up. I don't see any pattern here. I've been listening to my Democratic friends say for, I don't know, since God was a child, that Trump is a threat to democracy. I don't see any pattern here. I see a screw up.
Well, and the concern for
the very fact that even John Kennedy has to concede that this is a mistake, but it's not a pattern, is a concession. It means that the pressure point, the pressure is working. Okay, I'm telling you right now, there is finally a little bit of a vibe shift that's taking place. For the record, he's still lying. He's just trying to hold on to the rest of the deportations. He's like, well, this one was a mistake, but the other ones are valid. They're not. 90% of the people that were shipped off were not, they didn't have a criminal record, dude. Abrego Garcia is simply the tip of the iceberg. And the only reason why we're talking about Abrego Garcia is because the government admitted to making this mistake. That's it.
For some people is that if there's one screw up, it does become a slippery slope. It is worth noting Mr. Abrego Garcia has not ever been charged with a crime. And in terms of what the courts are saying, they're not saying this is under the jurisdiction of the president of El Salvador. They're saying this is the responsibility of the U.S. government, the Supreme Court ordering the Trump administration.
Like, are you using 90% of the hyperbole or fact? It's a fact. This is why I think the media is still bad and still needs to be pushed on this. Make no mistake. Right here, this anchor is supposed to turn around and say, ProPublica reporting on the matter showed that 75% have no criminal record whatsoever, and 90% have, beyond the 75%, 15% of them have like jaywalking tickets and shit like that, parking tickets. Like, she should say that. She should turn around and be like, the only reason why this is the news right now, the only reason why you're on the news and saying this and admitting to the wrongdoing by the government here is because the government actually The government actually admitted to the mistake. To say that this is not a pattern of behavior, this doesn't show a pattern of behavior, is completely ridiculous.
To facilitate his return. And in a ruling this week, a three-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals wrote, quote, the government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process that is the foundation of our constitutional order. Do you believe Mr. Abrego Garcia is due to have due process?
Well, I think, number one, he's had due process. But if your question is, should he have been given a hearing before he was sent to El Salvador, I think the answer is yes. But let me say something about the Fourth Circuit opinion written by Jay Wilkinson. Judge Wilkinson is a very clever, self-confident guy. But he left out one part in his opinion. What does he expect Trump to do? Declare war and go get Bukele? I mean, he brought Bukele to America. President Bukele sat in the Oval Office in front of God and country and said,
this is bad. This is bad propaganda. They're desperate. And weirdly enough, I think they did not expect there to be this much pushback. No one believes this. Republicans are not going to, even Republicans are not going to be like, oh, we can't get this guy back. Get out of here. Oh, Nayib Bukele is the big bad guy that we are having a real hard time forcing to play ball here. How can you make this argument when Donald Trump is like, we're going to destroy global trade single-handedly? Every one of the foreign leaders are coming in to kiss my asshole to do new trade relationships. And you're over here being like, well, we can't control Bukele. We can't control him. He's a scary guy. No one believes this shit.
I'm not sending this guy back. So I don't know what Judge Wilkinson expects Trump to do.
Well, the president could simply have asked for it back, and he may have brought him. But let me ask you about something you said just a couple of months ago.
How do you know he hasn't? But Kristen, how do you know he hasn't?
Well, he has said he's...
Because he said he hasn't. And he said he doesn't want this person to be brought back. He said it, by the way.
Doesn't plan to. I'm just basing this off of his public comments. The president said he doesn't plan to, but let me just play something that you said. This is a couple months ago during a confirmation hearing for some of the president's DOJ officials. Take a listen. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Don't ever take the position that you're not going to follow the order of a federal court. Now, all our judiciary has, an equal branch of government, has its legitimacy. It doesn't have an army. Don't ever say you're not going to follow the order of a court.
Do you believe that President Trump is following the orders of the courts right now?
Yes. And I don't believe that President Trump will defy a federal judge's order. If he does, I'll call him out on it. I believe what I said in the clip. I love the rule of law. I love it like the devil loves sin. I think if we start not following federal judicial orders, we undermine the system entirely. Now, that doesn't mean you can't criticize them. You can criticize them, you can appeal them, but you can't choose to not follow them. And I haven't seen President Trump do that. And if he does, I'll say very loudly and clearly that I think he's wrong.
Okay. Let me ask you about something else President Trump said this week. He said he would like to send what he called, and I'm quoting him, homegrown criminals, meaning U.S. citizens, to foreign prisons like the one in El Salvador. Senator, do you think the law allows the president of the United States to send U.S. citizens to a foreign prison?
Like the devil loves saying. What do you mean?
No, ma'am. Nor should it be considered appropriate or moral. We have our own laws. We have the 8th Amendment to the Constitution. We shouldn't send prisoners to foreign countries, in my judgment.
Yeah, until Trump does it, in which case he absolutely... You're surprised he said that? Chat, everything that you're watching on screen is a carefully crafted persona. He is a monstrous piece of shit, just like many other politicians are. John Kennedy is uniquely bad. He's just saying not what he's actually going to do. He's just saying what you want to hear. Wake up. If you think that once Trump starts that process, that John Kennedy will stand firmly against it, you are wrong.
Okay, let me switch gears here a little bit, ask you about President Trump's agenda, because I know y'all are going to be very focused on that. Senate Republicans split right now, Senator, over whether to allow tax hikes on wealthy Americans as a part of that budget bill that you're trying to pass. Bloomberg News is reporting that the House proposal would set the rate at 40% for taxpayers earning $1 million or more per year. That's up from the current top tax rate of 37%. Senator, would you support increase?
God, I love these guys, man. Maybe he is a MAGA communist, bro. Maybe he is. I don't know. Maybe Trump is a MAGA communist. Who knows, dude? JD Pondon, dude. My face when I hear that Trump wants to raise the tax rate for some of the most productive Americans. Are you telling me Trump wants to punish jobs providers?
Increasing the tax rate on wealthy Americans?
I'm not sure yet. I'd like to see the language. Here are my thoughts, Kristen, generally. I don't believe in making tax policy on the basis of class warfare. And I think the people who are raising this issue, they're entitled to, of course, but they're asking the wrong question. I listened under President Biden.
Dog, all tax policy is on the basis of class warfare, dipshit. I mean, you know that already, though. I like that he's saying, you know, the Trump administration entertaining this is like a woke campus radical, you know? They're being quite extremist about this. Let me tell you. I'll have you know. I would love for Trump to do that. That would be amazing. I don't think it's going to happen.
Biden, my Democratic colleagues for 4 years asked, who needs to pay more in taxes? That, to me, is the wrong question. The right question is what the hell happened to the money? And I hope that's the question that we address fundamentally in the reconciliation.
But, Senator, it sounds like you're leaving the door open to the possibility that you could ultimately at some point support an increase in taxes if you thought it was the best way to get that budget bill over the finish line?
Well, we're in the process of putting the bill together. And here's what will probably happen. The House and the Senate will spend about, I don't know, hopefully no more than 60 days trying to reach a consensus. Everything's on the table. We won't reach a consensus. And then we'll have to go to the White House and meet with the president. And after a few hugs and a cup of hot cocoa, the president will arbitrate here and say this is in and this is out. And then he's going to have to put his muscle behind it to pass it. But this bill is important. It's our way of lowering prices. You lower prices by cutting spending, by deregulating the economy, and by designing a tax code that looks like somebody designed it on purpose in a way that stimulates growth so wages go up. Senator, and that's my objective in all this.
Senator, we are almost out of time, but as you know, tensions have been mounting between the president and the Fed chair. Would you support President Trump removing Jerome Powell as Fed chair? I
don't think any president has the right to remove the Federal Reserve chairman. I think the Federal Reserve ought to be independent. I think that Jay Powell and President Trump need to sit down and once again have a hug and a cup of hot cocoa and work it out. My experience with Jay Powell is that he's got tiger blood. He's going to do what he thinks is right. And he's not going to go down in history as the Federal Reserve chairman that allowed inflation to become wild as a March hare. And he's going to do what he thinks he's got to do.
All right. Senator Kennedy, thank you so much. I want to wish you and your family a very happy Easter. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories.
Just hours.
Why hasn't Trump fired Jerome Powell? What do you think? Couple reasons. Because it will collapse the economy even further. Ya tamam baba git, önemli değil. Hayır değil. I think that it would be unwise.
Hours before the Supreme Court stopped the administration from deporting a group of Venezuelans using the centuries-old Alien Enemies Act, the president's border czar was fiercely defending the law's use. I spoke with Tom Homan Friday and began by asking him about Senator Van Hollen's meeting with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Senator Van Hollen has obviously got a chance to meet with him, but he had to travel to El Salvador to get any information. Does that concern you at all? I mean, these are people sent by the in his case, sent by the United States, and not even a U.S. senator could get any information about his whereabouts or the condition of his incarceration without actually going down and making the trip to El Salvador himself?
Well, he obviously knew his whereabouts because he went there to see him. But you know what bothers me more than that is a U.S. senator traveled to El Salvador on taxpayer dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat, terrorist. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested.
You're a terrorist. You're the actual public safety threat and a terrorist. And also so ugly that I think we should just deport you on the basis of that. Tom Homan should be jailed simply for the crime of looking the way he does. And before people say Hassan, Tom Homan might not hear what you have to say, but my friend that looks like Tom Homan will. No one else looks like Tom Homan, okay? This is a very unique look. Is your friend Baron Harkonnen? No? Then shut the f*** up, okay? For who said Tectone does? Okay, well, Tectone can hear it too. I don't care.
For murder, were released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. What concerns me is Van Hollen never went to the border the last 4 years on Joe Biden when he had a 600% increase in sex trafficking in women and children. You have a record number of no-inspected terrorists crossing that border. You had 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdose because of the open border. You got over 4,000 illegal aliens died making that journey, which is an historic record. What shocks me is he's remained silent on the travesty that happened on our southern border. Many people died. Thousands of people died. I've met with hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children that were murdered by an illegal alien. How many angel moms and dads has he met in the state of Maryland? That's what concerns me.
He says that he has done this because it's the issue here is due process, and it's following a court order. The Supreme Court has said that the administration needs to facilitate his return so he could have his chance at due process.
I think, and I understand to facilitate, but he's also in custody. He's a citizen and national of the country of El Salvador. El Salvador would certainly have to cooperate in that. But again, I'm on the loop on that. I'm not an attorney. I'm not litigating this case. We'll do whatever the law says we have to do. And what I think, I stand by the fact I think we did the right thing here. We removed a public safety threat, a national security threat, a violent gang member from the United States. ICE intelligence says he's an MS-13 gang member. A confidential informant says he's an MS-13 gang member. The country of El Salvador says he's an MS-13 gang member. I think he's exactly where he should be.
But you said that the El Salvador would have to cooperate. You have no doubt that if President Trump wanted him returned, that he could ask President Bukele to return him, right? I mean, President Trump could make this happen.
I can't comment on something I don't know. I can't.
But what do you think? I mean, you know President.
I'm not involved in.
I mean, you know President Trump. You've talked about how, he can get things done. I mean, if he wanted the guy returned, he could get him returned, right?
I do. I'm not going to comment on conversations I'm not a part of. I don't know what conversations they're having, who's having what conversation, what officials. I'm not in the loop on that.
So more broadly, let me ask you. I know you're a law guy. You've sworn.
Amazing. This is amazing. I love that this is the argument now. You've lost it if your argument is, the all-powerful American government simply has no motion to demand the return of someone who has been shipped away to El Salvador, in spite of the fact that we have done it time and time again throughout American history. Like, false deportations take place, even with due process. And we have brought back people that we falsely deported. I like that the argument from this administration, especially of all administrations, is, we just have no motion. We have no power over the nation of El Salvador.
An oath to uphold the Constitution. You did that through your entire career. The general principle I want to ask you is, do you agree that the Constitution extends, those constitutional rights that we all have, extend to every person in the United States? Every person, no matter what crime they're accused of or no matter their legal status?
And we have followed the Constitution. We have followed the law. I am confident that everything we've done is follow the law and is within the constitutional constructs. Absolutely.
And so that right of due process is something, the Fifth Amendment right of due process extends to everybody who would be deported. Well, they have a chance to have a hearing on this.
The length of due process is not the same under the Alien Enemies Act. That's why the Alien Enemies Act was created. President Trump invoked the authorities he had of the Alien Enemies Act, an act written and passed by Congress and signed by a president. We're using the laws on the books, the statutes on the books, to secure the border and remove significant public safety threats and national security threats to this country.
But let me get more specific on this. The Supreme Court has long held that constitutional rights extend to every person in the United States. Justice Scalia, a majority opinion that he wrote back in 1993, wrote, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings." Are you saying that by invoking the Alien Enemies Act that undocumented immigrants are not entitled to those due process rights under the Fifth Amendment?
Well, I'm saying the procedure under the Alien Enemies Act is less than it is during a Title VIII removal proceeding, and we're following the rules of the Alien Enemies Act. Again, I think this administration has followed the law. They're using statutes enacted by Congress, signed by a president, to remove the terrorists from this country. I'm not saying, I'm not arguing over here that nobody should get due process. I'm just saying there's a different process under the Alien Enemies Act, less of a process than you see through Title VIII.
Let me ask you, do you have any qualms about sending people to that notorious prison in El Salvador with no assurance that they will ever have a chance to get out? People that have no record, have not been convicted of any violent crimes. Do you have any qualms about that?
I believe removing public safety threats and terrorists, designated terrorists, to that prison in El Salvador. Tren de Agua MS-30 is a designated terrorist organization. What you don't know, what most readers don't know, they haven't seen the experience what I've seen in my 40 years. I started in Border in 1984. I've talked to young girls, young as 9, that were raped by members of these gang cartels. I've held dead bodies throughout my career. I've talked to 100 angel moms and dads whose children were killed and brutally murdered by members of MS-13 who just didn't kill them. They mutilated them, they tortured them. So if people wore my shoes for the last 40 years and seen the travesties I've seen, they would understand that the worst of the worst need to be sent to a prison like that, because we got to protect American citizens, we got to protect this country.
And you're saying there's no mistakes? No mistakes, that everybody's sent to this prison, again, with no guarantee of any right to have a chance to challenge their imprisonment, any prospect of release. And they didn't go through a full, and none of these people, as you've acknowledged, have gone through a full trial.
You need to read the Alien Enemies Act. We follow the Alien Enemies Act, and you're talking like it's a Title VIII removal. It isn't a Title VIII removal. That's a different procedure.
Yeah, so you're acknowledging without
Congress, without an Enemies Act.
So no extended proceedings, no chance to prove their innocence. Somebody's got a bad tattoo.
I'm telling
somebody's
we can go.
Been accused. I mean, you acknowledge tattoos are part of the calculation here. I mean, you might have a tattoo.
There's one factor out of many factors. I worked. Have you been in an alien gang squad? Because I have. Tattoos are one of many factors that's going to determine someone's gang. It's not the only one. You can't say, okay, tattoo gang member. No, there's other indicia that's added to that tattoo. Tattoo is one factor that adds to other factors to make that determination. What I'm saying is you can't ignore a tattoo. That's one more factor that leads you to believe maybe he's a gang member. It's just not based on tattoos. It's based on a lot of other things, but tattoo's one of many. But no one's removed just because of a tattoo.
In other words, the Alien Enemies Act means you can grab somebody and you can deport them without an extended hearing because you have labeled them a terrorist. Because you've said you've determined that somebody is a member of the gang, and therefore they don't have to go through the extended process of the opportunity to have a full hearing. That's what you're saying. And let's just be clear.
I'm saying we're following the laws of this country, and there's a different procedure for each one. We're doing things within the frame of the law. We're doing things legally.
Okay.
I stand by that. Now, again, I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm not going to argue this in court. That's what the Department of Justice does. But I'm sitting here today thinking we've done the right thing for this nation, following the laws and the Constitution of this country.
All right, Tom Homan, the Trump administration's borders are. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
The White House responded to the Supreme Court's temporary hold on the use of the Alien Enemies Act in a statement from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, saying in part, "We are confident in the lawfulness of the administration's actions and in ultimately prevailing against an onslaught of meritless litigation brought by radical activists who care more about the rights of terrorist aliens
So the
than
Supreme
those
Court.
of the American people."
Technology, online culture, journalists.
So the Supreme Court that came down with this decision is actually a bunch of radical activist judges, I guess. Now, who isn't a radical activist judge, bro? Is there anyone that's not a radical activist judge? By the way, the Vietnamese bot channel, is done, did it again. They wrote, Texas high school violence case exposed, Hasanabi reacts. In the thumbnail, they said, clearly self-defense. 56-minute video. If you watched my actual commentary on this issue, you would know that I did not say it's clearly self-defense. As a matter of fact, I said it's unclear if it is self-defense. That was my point. Having said that, I don't have all of the information or all of the details. It could very well be self-defense. Now, 56 minutes long because we don't know if it is actually considered self-defense or not. I watched a few analysis videos from self-defense lawyers on YouTube. They all used the Texas legal code to show that it was clearly murder. There were multiple clear code instances of provocation which automatically rule out self-defense. Hey, Hasan the Hun, timer started. It has to be done. Yes, dude. This guy, XOX Burnt, is going to come and kill me. Like, dude whose account has this PFP is going to murder me. Yeah, it is the bot account. Yeah, that would be the weakest way to go out. I'm not gonna lie. Getting clapped by a pedophile lolly enjoyer would be truly a bad way to go. I'm gonna be honest. At least they can't hurt anyone while they're busy arguing with a picture of a thumbnail on Twitter. Yeah. I'm gonna get to the Pete League in a second. What is the deal with that wrestler clip? It's not a wrestler. He is a pedophile Nazi, ironically enough, by the name of Sam Hyde, who lost his comedy career before it could take off, really, because of his love for doing both pedophilia and defending Nazis. And he was doing for the laws for like a year and a half, talking about how he's gonna kill me, how he's gonna murder me. He was interviewed after his boxing fight and was like, Hassan Piker, I'm going to kill you. And the Nazi fans that he has always love bringing that up because it's not like they're going to go outside, but they sit around and hope that maybe one day someone who does go outside will come and kill me or something. I don't know. Very weird stuff. Yeah, he should be worried about heart disease. That's what he should be really worried about. Who said this? The pedophile neo-Nazi Sam Hyde. Check out the top comment on your kneecap IG post. I don't see it. It's just Palestine-related stuff. What is the comment that you're referencing? The Cumboys used to be cool with Sam. It's weird how you can still be friends with them when they were friends with Sam. I wonder if the content cop said anything about this in regards to a certain content creator. What do you mean? Content cop said anything about this in regards to a certain content creator? Adam is still friends too. I don't think so. I don't know where you guys get this from. I'd be shocked. I saw him on a pod recently. I did not know that. Have you ever noticed how each member of Cumtown represents id ego and super ego? I have taken to calling them the brothers Kumazov. Adam was on his podcast like a year and a half to 2 years ago. Yeah, I don't think they was recently on his podcast or anything like that. Ethan cut off Ian over his friendship with Denims and others. In the content cop, Ian brings up this with Steiny and Ethan said and Tate. Yeah. I I think that there was, this is before I met the boys, but I think that there was a point where they were homies, but I don't think they are anymore. Well, I have no idea. And it would shock me if they still were. Hasan reaction is one of the best ones in the React channel.